Freddie Mercury makes his final phone call on November 23, 1991, the day before he dies. 4 words. That's all he says. The person who answered that call has never publicly revealed what those words were until now. Garden Lodge, Kensington, London. November 23, 1991, Saturday evening, 6:47 p.m. Freddie Mercury is dying. Everyone knows it. He knows it. The people closest to him know it. Tomorrow, he'll release a public statement confirming he has AIDS. The next day, he'll be dead. But tonight, right now, Freddie is sitting in his bedroom. The curtains are drawn. The lights are low. Jim Hutton, his partner, is downstairs making soup that Freddie won't eat. Phoebe Freestone, his assistant, is organizing medications. Mary Austin, his closest friend, is in the sitting room, waiting. Freddie picks up the phone beside his bed. His hands shake. He's lost so much weight that holding the receiver feels like lifting concrete. He dials a number, waits. The phone rings 3 times. A woman answers. "Hello," Freddie speaks. 4 words, then hangs up. The woman stands in her kitchen in Feltham, West London, holding the phone, crying. Her name is Rita Singh. She's 68 years old. She hasn't spoken to Freddie Mercury in over 30 years. Rita Singh was Freddie's neighbor when he was a teenager. The Bulsara family, Freddie's family, lived in a modest house on Gladstone Avenue in Feltham when they first emigrated from Zanzibar. Rita lived 3 doors down. Freddie was 17, shy, quiet, different. He'd come home from boarding school with an accent that made the local boys mock him. His skin was darker than theirs. His interests were strange art, music, clothes. He didn't fit in. Rita's son, Ajay, was the same age, but Ajay was everything Freddie wasn't. Popular, athletic, confident. The boys never became friends. But Rita noticed Freddie, noticed how he'd sit alone in his garden, how he'd sing to himself when he thought nobody was listening. One afternoon in 1963, Rita was hanging washing when she heard piano music coming from the Bulsara house. She followed the sound, looked through the window, saw young Freddie playing their small upright piano, playing beautifully, playing like it was the only thing in the world that mattered. Rita knocked on the door. Freddie's mother, Jair, answered. "I heard your son playing," Rita said. "He's wonderful." Jair smiled. "His father thinks it's a waste of time, wants him to focus on proper studies. May I listen just for a moment?" Jair let her in. Rita stood in the doorway of the small sitting room. Freddie, embarrassed, stopped playing. "Don't stop," Rita said gently. "Please, keep playing." Freddie looked at his mother. She nodded. He continued. Rita listened to the entire piece. When it ended, she said, "You have something special. Don't let anyone tell you otherwise." Freddie, 17 and uncertain, looked at her with eyes that seemed older than his years. "My father says music won't feed a family. Maybe not, but it feeds the soul. That's just as important." Over the next 2 years, before Freddie moved away to study at Ealing Art College, Rita became his quiet champion. When Freddie's father Bomi complained about the piano playing, Rita would defend it. "Let the boy have his music," she'd say over the garden fence. When local boys mocked Freddie's appearance, Rita's son, Ajonda, his mother's instruction would shut them down. Rita never thought of it as anything significant, just small kindnesses, being decent to a lonely boy. But Freddie remembered. In 1970, when Queen released their first single, Freddie sent Rita a copy, with a note, "Thank you for listening when nobody else would." Rita kept that note in her Bible, showed it to nobody, not even her husband. It felt too personal, too precious. This connection to the boy who'd become a star. They exchanged occasional letters over the years. Rita watched Freddie become famous, saw him on television, read about him in newspapers, felt proud, like she'd known something special was there all along. Her son, Ajay, now an adult, would ask, "Mum, why do you care so much about Freddie Mercury?" "Because I knew him when he was nobody, when he was just a scared boy who loved music. That matters." Rita noticed things other fans didn't. The way Freddie's stage persona was armor, the way his confidence seemed manufactured. She'd see interviews where he'd laugh and perform and she'd think, "That's not Farouk. That's the mask Farouk wears to survive." She wanted to reach out, tell him it was okay to still be scared, that success doesn't heal childhood wounds. But she didn't want to burden him, didn't want to be another person demanding his attention. The last time they spoke was 1985, after Live Aid. Freddie called her out of nowhere. Rita was making dinner. The phone rang. She answered. "Rita, it's Freddie. Freddie Mercury." "Well, Farouk, You knew me as Farrick. Rita's hands shook. I know who you are, dear. I watched you at Wembley. You were magnificent. I thought of you during the performance, when 72,000 people were singing along. I remembered being 17 in my parents' sitting room, playing for an audience of one. You that felt bigger than Wembley, more real. Why? Because you saw me when I couldn't see myself. The words you said, don't let anyone tell you otherwise. I've carried them for 22 years. When the record labels rejected us, when critics destroyed our first album, when my father said I was wasting my life, I'd hear your voice, telling me I had something special. Rita was crying. You did have something special. You always did. I almost gave up so many times. Freddie continued. 1973. After the second album flopped, I was ready to quit, get a real job, stop pretending I could be a musician. Then I remembered you, standing in my parents' doorway, listening to me play piano like it was the most important thing in the world. And I thought, if one person believed in me that much, maybe I owe it to them to keep trying. Freddie, you saved me, Rita. You saved me from giving up. Everything I've become, Queen, the music, all of it exists because you told a 17-year-old boy he mattered. I wanted you to know that. Before he stopped. I just wanted you to know. Rita heard something in his voice, something final. Are you all right, dear? I will be. I just needed to say thank you, properly, while I still can. They talked for another hour, about Feltham, about the old neighborhood, about Rita's son, Ajay, who'd become an accountant, about ordinary things, safe things, things that had nothing to do with fame or Queen or Freddie Mercury. When they hung up, Rita told her husband, that was Farrick Bulsara. He called to say thank you. For what? For seeing him. After that call, 6 years of silence, Rita assumed Freddie had moved on, forgotten about the old neighbor lady who'd listened to him play piano 3 decades ago. She was wrong. November 23, 1991, 6:47 p.m. The phone rings. Rita answers. Hears Freddie's voice, barely recognizes it. It's thin, weak, broken. He says 4 words. You were right, Rita. Then the phone goes dead. Rita stands in her kitchen, shaking. She knows. She doesn't know how she knows, but she knows. That was goodbye. That was Freddie telling her he was dying. That was him acknowledging that she'd seen something in him when he couldn't see it himself. She sits at her kitchen table, cries, calls her son Ajay. Freddie just rang me. Freddie Mercury. Yes, he said you were right, Rita. That's all. I think he's saying goodbye. 2 days later, November 24th, Freddie releases his AIDS statement. The next day, November 25th, he dies. The news is everywhere. Television, radio, newspapers. The world mourns. Rita mourns differently. Privately, she goes to Garden Lodge the morning after he dies. It's early, 6 a.m., before the crowds. The gates are already covered with flowers, hundreds of them, candles, cards, photos, teddy bears, the detritus of public grief. Rita adds her flowers, white roses, Freddie's favorite, to the pile. Doesn't tell anyone who she is, just another person who loved Freddie Mercury, but she carries those 4 words with her. You were right, Rita. 4 words that contain multiples. You were right to believe in me. You were right that music mattered. You were right that being different wasn't wrong. You were right that I had something special. Rita stands at the gates of Garden Lodge for 3 hours, watching people come, crying, leaving flowers, leaving pieces of themselves. A woman brings a Queen album, sobbing. A young man brings a rainbow flag. 2 elderly ladies bring a framed photo of Freddie performing. Rita notices a teenage boy, maybe 16, wearing a Queen shirt, crying so hard he can barely stand. The boy collapses against the gate. His friends try to comfort him, but he's inconsolable. Rita walks over, puts her hand on the boy's shoulder. He meant a lot to you. The boy nods, can't speak. Tell me, Rita says gently. He made me feel less alone. The boy finally says, I'm gay. My parents don't accept it. But Freddie, he was himself, unapologetically. He showed me it was possible. And now he's gone, and I don't know how to. The boy breaks down again. Rita holds him. This stranger. This boy who reminds her of 17-year-old Farrick, scared, different, needing someone to say he mattered. Listen to me, Rita says firmly. Freddie would tell you that being yourself is the only thing that matters, that hiding kills you slower than any disease, that you're perfect exactly as you are. I knew him. I knew him before he was Freddie Mercury, and that's what he believed. The boy looks at her. You knew him when he was your age. when he was just as scared as you. And I told him something that I'm going to tell you now. You have something special. Don't let anyone tell you otherwise. The boy hugs her. Rita feels Freddie in that moment. Feels the circle completing the kindness she showed Farrokh, now passing to this boy. To thousands of boys and girls who needed to hear that they mattered. That's what those 4 words meant. You were right, Rita. Not just about Freddie. About all of them. Every scared kid who needed someone to believe in them. For 30 years, Rita keeps the story private. Tells nobody except her immediate family. It's too personal, too sacred. But she thinks about those 4 words every day. Wonders if she should have said more, done more, been more present in Freddie's life. Until 2021. Rita is 98 years old, dying herself. Cancer. Her granddaughter Priya is visiting. They're looking through old photographs. Rita finds one. Teenage Freddie sitting at the piano in the Bulsara house, 1963. Rita had taken it that first day she listened to him play. Who's that? Priya asks. Freddie Mercury. Before he was famous, when he was just Farrokh Bulsara, the boy who lived 3 doors down. You knew Freddie Mercury. Rita tells the whole story. The piano. The father who didn't approve. The small kindnesses. The Live Aid phone call. The final phone call. The 4 words. Priya is crying. Nani, why didn't you ever tell anyone? Because it wasn't mine to tell. It was his goodbye, his private moment. You don't sell someone's dying words for money or attention. But people should know. They should know that Freddie Mercury, one of the greatest performers ever, took time on his deathbed to call someone from his childhood, to acknowledge someone who believed in him. That matters. Rita thinks about this. About the boy at Garden Lodge. About all the scared kids who need to know that kindness ripples across decades. That believing in someone can save them. Maybe you're right. Maybe that's the story worth telling. Not for me. For everyone who thinks their small kindnesses don't matter. For everyone who wonders if believing in someone makes a difference. It does. 4 words prove it. Rita dies 3 weeks later. At her funeral, Priya tells the story. About the neighbor who listened. About the 4 words. About how one moment of kindness rippled across decades. The story spreads. Quietly at first. Then wider. Queen fans hear about it. Brian May confirms it's true. Freddie talked about Rita sometimes. About how she was one of the first people to see him. Really see him. Not what his parents wanted him to be. Not what the kids at school mocked. Just him. The 4 words. You were right. Rita becomes something larger. A reminder that the people who believe in us when we're nothing stay with us when we become something. That success doesn't erase where we came from. That Freddie Mercury, hours before his death, dying of AIDS, in pain and afraid, used his last bit of strength to call someone and say thank you. Rita never wanted recognition, never wanted fame. But her story does something important. It humanizes Freddie. Shows that behind the legend was someone who remembered small kindnesses, who valued the person who listened when he was 17 and unsure and different. You were right, Rita, for words, but they contain multiples. You were right to believe in me. You were right that music mattered. You were right that being different wasn't wrong. You were right that I had something special. You were right to listen. If this story moves you, think about who saw you when you were nothing, who believed in you before anyone else did. Have you told them? Have you called them? Have you said the equivalent of you were right? Don't wait until you're dying. Don't wait until it's too late. Call them now. Thank them now. Let them know their kindness mattered. Because somewhere, someone is waiting to hear their version of those 4 words. And you might be the only person who can say them.